bear came out of the brush without warning. One moment, Hugh Glass was moving through the wilderness alone, scouting ahead of his group through dense forest in what is now South Dakota. The next moment, 400 pounds of grizzly bear crashed into him before he even had time to raise his rifle. She had cubs nearby, and that was enough. The attack was violent, fast, and relentless. The bear tore through his back, his shoulders, and his scalp. She slammed him into the ground again and again while Glass fought back with nothing but a knife, stabbing wildly just to stay alive. By the time his companions finally managed to pull the animal off him and kill it, Hugh Glass was barely recognizable. His ribs were broken. His leg was badly fractured. Deep wounds covered his body, and every breath came in short, ragged gasps. The men around him looked at what was left and decided he wasn't going to survive. It was 1823, deep inside dangerous frontier territory, where every delay could become fatal. The expedition couldn't afford to stop for a dying man, so 2 volunteers stayed behind with Hugh Glass. Their job was simple: wait until he died, bury him, and rejoin the group later. But days passed, and Hugh Glass still refused to die. The wilderness around them was hostile, supplies were limited, and staying longer meant risking their own lives. Eventually, the 2 men made a decision. They took Glass's rifle, his knife, and the few supplies he still had, and they abandoned him alone in the wilderness. Then they returned to the expedition and reported that Hugh Glass was dead. But Hugh Glass wasn't dead. He woke up alone. No fire, no weapons, no food, no horse. Just silence, pain, and the realization that the men who promised to stay beside him had disappeared with everything he needed to survive. His wounds were already infected. His back was shredded badly enough that even small movements sent pain through his entire body. His leg couldn't support his weight at all. He was hundreds of miles from safety, surrounded by wilderness that could kill a healthy man, let alone someone in his condition. Most people would have understood the situation immediately and accepted it. Hugh Glass understood it too, and then he started moving. The first thing he did was set his own broken leg. There is no clean way to describe what that actually means. It means forcing yourself to stay conscious while every nerve in your body is screaming at you to stop. It means knowing the pain is coming and doing it anyway, because survival depends on it. So he splintered the leg as best he could and began crawling. His destination was Fort Kiowa, nearly 200 miles away. 200 miles, with a broken leg, infected wounds, and no supplies. He dragged himself through the wilderness one movement at a time, through dirt, mud, rocks, freezing nights, and endless exhaustion. He ate whatever he could find: wild berries, roots, scraps of raw meat from animal carcasses abandoned by wolves. Hunger never disappeared. Pain never disappeared either. And then the infection got worse. The wounds in his back began to rot badly enough that Hugh Glass made another horrifying decision. He used maggots to clean the infected flesh because he understood something important. The maggots would eat the dead tissue and slow the infection before it killed him completely. That decision alone tells you the state he was in. Survival had stopped being about strength a long time ago. It had become problem-solving. Every day the wilderness gave him another reason to stop. Cold nights, starvation, infection, exhaustion, isolation. Every day he kept moving anyway. Eventually, Hugh Glass reached the Cheyenne River. Crawling across the wilderness was destroying what little strength he had left. So he found a large log and used it to float downstream. But even that wasn't rest. He still had to control the log, avoid obstacles, stay balanced, and force himself to remain conscious while his body slowly failed around him. By this point, he had been alone for weeks. No conversation, no help, no reassurance that he was getting closer, just silence and survival instinct. And that kind of isolation changes people. There's no audience in a situation like that. No one telling you to keep going, no one praising your strength, no one watching to see if you quit. At some point, survival becomes a private decision made entirely inside your own head. Hugh Glass kept making that decision. 6 weeks after being left for dead, he finally reached Fort Kiowa. The people there could barely believe what they were seeing. A man who had supposedly died in the wilderness had crawled and floated nearly 200 miles alone through hostile frontier territory with broken bones, severe infection, and almost no supplies. And somehow, he survived. His wounds healed. His body recovered. He continued working as a frontiersman for years afterward, eventually crossing paths with some of the men who abandoned him. But the most remarkable part of the story isn't revenge. It's that the wilderness failed. The bear failed. Infection failed. Starvation failed. Isolation failed. Because the men who left Hugh Glass behind underestimated something deeper than physical toughness. They underestimated what happens when someone completely refuses to accept that this is where their story ends. That's what survival stories like this reveal. Not superhuman strength, not fearlessness, just the terrifying resilience of a person who decides that stopping is not an option. Hugh Glass kept moving because he understood something simple. He didn't need to survive the next 6 weeks all at once. He just needed to survive the next movement, then the next one after that. And sometimes, that's enough to keep a human being alive through things that should have killed them long before help ever arrived. More stories of survival that redefine what humans are capable of. Subscribe.